Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. Our vision is to inspire all leaders to challenge the status quo. We bring you weekly topics and thought-provoking guests to get you to stop, reflect, and think about what it means to be a leader in a modern world. Our aim is to help you become the leader you wish you always had, as we learn together and lead together. Today's episode is brought to you by my new book, You're a Leader, Now What? The Proven Path to High-Performance Leadership. The book contains many of the great lessons that we've been learning together during the Leadership Project podcast, together with many other lessons that I've collected over my 30-year career as a leader. The book is aimed at first-time leaders, but really there's lessons in there for everyone. It would be greatly appreciated if you could go and grab your copy on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback, and if you could leave us an honest review on Amazon. Now, on with the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honoured today to be joined by Joel Green, and I've been looking forward to this interview ever since Joel came across our paths. He's the CEO of Pro Level Training, and he's the National Director of Nike Sports Camps, and he's a former professional basketball player. But he's now a renowned motivational speaker, including a quite famous TED Talk around equality. He's also trained in psychology. So this is not just coming from a sports point of view about what worked from him. He's also got his education in psychology, and we're going to talk about that today. Going to talk about positive psychology and some of the pros and cons of that. And then we're going to get into a really key message that Joel has got for everyone around equality. So without any further ado, Joel, I would love it if you would please say hello to our audience, give a little bit more of your very rich background, and tell us what led you to be with us today.
Good morning, guys. First off, Mick, thank you for having me on. I really, truly appreciate it. Excited to be on the show and make any impact that I can by way of just having a conversation with you. Again, I'm honored to be on. My background, it's rich. I would say for most not desired. I came up in really humble conditions in Philadelphia is where I grew up in North Philly. And, very humble conditions. Just as far as the environment outside of our home, violence, it was during the crack era of the late 80s, early 90s, pretty tough time. My house was abandoned. It was a condemned home that I lived in, graffiti on the walls. It was life. Wearing borrowed clothes from the church and things like that. I don't talk about these things with any regret about it. It was my life, and it made me who I am today. And it bred me for the toughness of sport that I ended up going into, which was, I'll be honest, an amazing distraction for me. Sports for me just became like the blessing in disguise to keep me off the streets, to keep me from getting in trouble, as my friends did. And it took me to so many places that I didn't even imagine, I didn't even know existed, to be honest. Other states that I didn't know about, other countries that I, never even thought I would go to. Basketball helped me get into those places and opened so many doors and opportunities for me that I still walk in today as a business owner, as a former pro player, as I work with the youth and speak from the stage to adults. My humble, environment growing up, just going through different things definitely made me who I am today.
I just love that, Joel. If I can reflect that back to you and watching you talk about that, yes, you're very open, you're very transparent that you came from a difficult background, but you also own it, and you there seems to be this like acknowledgement and a celebration that's part of who you are. So you had struggles. Congratulations on your success, but you don't shy away from that. And now what I see is someone that shines a light that there are other people that are struggling. They're struggling with inequality. They're struggling with inequity in our society. And you do shine a light on that in a lot of that motivational speaking. So thank you for being so open about it. Thank you for owning it and being your authentic self. And then thank you for all that you do to champion people that still have those struggles in their everyday life.
I appreciate that.
I'd like to just put a little bit of flavor around the basketball career for a moment. So that was part of your success and part of who you are as well. You've played basketball all around the world. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it was a blessing for me. My dream was to play here in the States, play in the NBA and be like Michael Jordan. That was my goal when I was a little kid, as, that was for most kids playing the game of basketball. But that wasn't my path. My path was I did not get drafted into the NBA, but I had, plenty of opportunity to go to Europe, to go to South America. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, it would have been great to have the NBA career. Yeah, I worked out with NBA teams and things like that. But to play in Europe, that was a blessing for me. I wouldn't be able to say I've been here, I've been there. I wouldn't have been able to experience the different cultures. I'll be honest, that I experienced that I never would have thought I would have, lived in and just had to adjust to. But that was the best part about it. I had no choice. Once I was in Ireland, I'm like, wow, okay, this is a different culture. Once I was in, Spain, I said, this is so it was a great experience for me to just really learn about other people, to have, empathy toward other cultures and just really understand others outside of myself, outside of the American culture. And that was just the best part, to just really bring joy to others abroad as opposed to just doing it here in America.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Joel, because you did train with the 76ers and yeah, I'm sure that was your dream. You wanted to be like Mike and you wanted to be in the NBA, etc. I tend to think that things happen for a reason. And what you end up doing, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's not like I'm an NBA player and I can know what it feels like, but I'm going to look at it from the outside and go that most NBA players live in a bubble. They live in an NBA bubble and they don't exist too much out of that bubble. Whereas here you are, Joel, going and living in all of these countries around the world and listening to what you said, you learnt so much about those cultures, you learnt so much about different countries, etc. So for me, in some strange way, it's more like a blessing that makes you a richer individual from the experiences. Any reflections on that?
Yeah, I mean, initially it wasn't anything that I celebrated because my goal, just complete transparency, my goal was to still play well enough in Europe and then come back home during the summer times, work out with some teams in the NBA and still make it to the NBA. But after, a couple of years, that wasn't my concern because I really began enjoying the new adventures and experiences of going abroad and going to a new country each year. It just really added to who I was. And I saw it while it was happening. And I began to celebrate that. And that was the main thing. Once I accepted my reality and said, okay, look, if I make it to the NBA or not, so what? This is a path that I'm enjoying. The whole NBA side of things was very comparative. It was like I was comparing myself to the LeBrons and, to the Chris Pauls and the guys that I came up with as far as in high school and all. And it wasn't about that. Everybody's on their own journey. And once I began to accept that, I really began enjoying my journey. And it really added a whole lot of value to who I was and who I am as a person.
There's many things I love there. So accepting who you are, being proud of who you are, and then enjoying the journey. So dropping the comparison. And I got to tell you, Joel, we see far too much of this in everyday life, not just in NBA life. We see so many people comparing themselves to what they see on someone else's Instagram feed, forgetting that Instagram feed is a curated version, the life that they want you to see, right? So if you spend all of your life comparing yourself to others, you're robbing yourself of your own journey and of your own joy.
Absolutely.
What did you learn about yourself during all of that time?
I learned I'm a tough individual. I'll be honest. That was the main thing I learned because, and not just tough as far as fighting, the toughness as far as the mental toughness, the ability to adjust. For me, that shows toughness. Like for you to be in a situation that's unideal, because again, every experience that I had wasn't ideal. It wasn't like I was in the best neighborhood when I was playing in some of these areas. It wasn't always, top of the line, 5-star environments. So for me to be able to adjust to that new culture, adjust to the new lifestyle, adjust to the new language, things like that showed me I have a level of toughness that I didn't know existed in me, mentally, to just really be able to adapt and adjust and overcome, different struggles. The pay, wasn't always secure or guaranteed in some of these places. There was just a number of things to where I still was able to, see the silver lining and say, you know what, focus on that. Don't focus on what's not going correctly, what's not going, in a way that you desire. Focus on what you can control and dominate that.
Yeah, brilliant. So being proud of that strength, being proud of that resilience, and then getting involved in what you can control and not worrying so much about the things that are out of your control. Yeah, that's a great lesson to take from that. I think it's also a good segue to what I've read about your war cry. So I'd love to unpack that. So don't make excuses, make adjustments. What does that mean, Joel?
Oh, that's a big one for me. I mean, that's something to where I came up with it for myself, because I would unknowingly, I'm not big on excuses at all. Believe me, I have a son and I tell him, look, stop making excuses. We have to learn how to just figure things out, to the best of our ability. If we figure it out, awesome. If you don't, no problem. You try it. But for me, I'm not one that's going to sit back and blame shift and just try to find a reason that something didn't work out that I have the power to control. If something is in my hand to control, I'm going to hold myself accountable for it, right? Like that's the main thing that we negate. We always put ourselves aside and put everything and everybody else in the forefront to blame. So I'm not big on making excuses whatsoever. I hold myself accountable to see what adjustments I can make to make whatever I want to make an excuse about correct.
Yeah, really good, Joel. So I want to unpack that a little bit further. I'd love you to tell us more about maybe some examples of where you've lived that. So I'm hearing there are a lot of people out there that do make excuses and say, well, it's not my fault, it's everyone else's fault. And you're saying, yes, don't worry about the things that are not in your control, but for the things that are in your control, take full accountability. How does that show up in Joel's life? Have you got any examples that you could give?
I have plenty of examples. I mean, since we discussed basketball, I'll bring that up again. As far as, again, the NBA or just even a contract, right? So let's say I didn't get the contract that I wanted. I can make excuses. I can blame the team. I can blame the organization and say, man, it's because of them that I didn't get that figure contract that I wanted. And as opposed to saying, okay, how can I make sure I get the contract that I want next season? What adjustments can I make to my training regimen during the off season to ensure I'm coming back as a better product? I'm going to be showing myself to be a better, stronger athlete overall, to really ensure that I improve upon what my contract looked like last year. So instead of me making a ton of excuses, it's because I was sick a few months ago. Because I hurt my toe. Because the coach doesn't like me. Look, you have to make an adjustment. Even that adjustment, on the pro side of things, meaning leaving that club and going to another organization, whatever adjustment I have to make to put myself in the ideal setting, I have to look in the mirror, accept where I currently am. Again, that acceptance is a tough thing to do because it feels good to blame other people. Like an excuse feels amazing in the moment because it's relieving you of a burden temporarily, though. Like that burden is still going to be there until you take accountability for yourself. That conviction is going to be inside of you. An excuse, that's one of those temporary fixes. You know what I mean? It's not like it's really an end-all situation for you. That whatever you made an excuse about is going to reside there. It's just going to be covered up a little bit. So I had to just say, okay, you got to make adjustments, Joel. You got to look in the mirror, accept the situation. And this relates to relationships as well. Look, I've had my heart broken and say, all right, look, I could blame them for everything, the other party for leaving or something like that. But at some point, I should still, even if I may have been on the correct side of things, look in the mirror and say, how can I still get better so that my next relationship, these topics, these issues won't even come up? If there were any valid reasons, can I still make any adjustments to make sure my next relationship is a better one?
With a bit of license, Joel, I'd love to share with you two of my philosophies that I live by because I think they're very similar. In business, the first one is that you're never defeated unless you give up. You're never defeated unless you give up. But what that doesn't mean is that you just keep on trying the same thing every day, beating your head against the wall and expect a different result. I call them pivots. So you're not defeated, but you don't just keep on doing the same thing. You pivot and you keep on trying until you find that magic source where everything just clicks one day and you get the growth that you were looking for. You might plateau again, and guess what? You got to do it again. You got to pivot so that you're ready for the next acceleration. Yeah, cool. And the other one I do is I do daily self-reflection, Joel. So every day I ask myself the same 5 questions. What did I do well today? What didn't I do well today? What would I do differently next time if I had my time again? What did I learn about myself and what did I learn about others? And your example of the relationship, yes, there's always 2 sides to a story in a relationship, but what was in your control that you could do different next time so you don't repeat patterns in your next relationship, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I love those things. I mean, I completely agree. From that first side, I believe the same thing. I tell people all the time, like a failure, a setback, like a failure, it should be a midpoint and not an endpoint for you. You have to see a failure as something like, okay, look, this happened, but this doesn't end it. And it's just like you said, I mean, you're not defeated until you stop. And that's so true. I have to carry that same mentality in business to where it's like, that deal didn't work out. I try to make that connection or that partnership. Okay, that didn't work out. Honestly, what's next? Who's next? What's the next attempt, going to look like? And I love that second thing that you mentioned, man. That's huge. Just for reflection. I do something similar. I call it, reviewing my bag, my blessings, my achievements, and my goals. Right. So it's different things to where I just want to look back and say, all right, man, God, thank you. I appreciate that, just to show like gratefulness and that I'm not selfishly taking credit for everything that I've attained or achieved. No, it's not true. So I have to review my bag and just even reflect back on my accomplishments, not to become complacent, because I'm not one that celebrates everything too much. People even tell me, you need to celebrate your achievements more. And I'm always so focused on when I achieve something and I keep it moving on to the next achievement. But I tell myself to just sit down sometimes and just reflect on your bag. And then the goals is at the very end and say, okay, I saw those achievements. Now what's next? And I look ahead and set some more goals for myself.
I want to play that back again, make sure the audience got it. So review or reflect on your bag.
On your bag. Yeah. So like, here in the States, people always say secure your bag. So people talk about, the money bag, things like that. I tell people, definitely review your bag too. Again, the blessings, your achievements that you've accomplished, and your goals that that way you're just showing gratitude, gratefulness, and also you're showing yourself love for what you've accomplished in the past. You know what I mean? If you're going to look back, don't look back on the bad things and feel bad about them. Look back and say, you know what, look where I've come from. And then also at the same moment, look ahead. That way, you have movement in the proper direction.
Yeah, brilliant, Joel. And we touched on it there a little bit, but I'd like to unpack it a little bit further. One of the things I've read you talk about, today's failure could be tomorrow's triumph. How do you turn a momentarily failure into something that could be a future triumph?
Well, it sounds funny and it sounds simple, but when you're down, you can't get any lower, right? It's just the true reality of things. If you fall and if that's your failure, can you fall any lower? Probably not. I mean, if you're already on the ground, the only way to go is up. So that's the way I look at it. So like today's failure, you have to just kind of you have to recognize it though. And that's the tough thing for a lot of us, because when we fall, when we fail, emotionally, we're so in tune with that moment in that surface of that situation that we only see the negative side of it. We don't see the triumph of tomorrow, right? And that's the problem. So we have to realize, okay, when we fail, when we fall, we have to realize that things can only get better from this moment. But we're so focused on the difficulty of it that we only see things getting worse. So we have to just shift our perspective a little bit and literally just look up. You know what I mean? Like if we're down, we have to look up, as opposed to when we're down, just, all just hanging our head. And I tell people all the time, for myself, you know how heartbreak, when your heart gets broken, you listen to sad songs, right? Like that's the moment when we listen to sad songs and they all make sense and things like that. I tell people, I try to do the inverse because I don't want to stay in that moment. So if my heart is sad about anything, it's not just, a relationship or anything, but if my heart is sad or just in a down place, sure, I'll vent. I'll live in that moment, but only for a moment. I don't want to stay there too long. It doesn't feel good. So I'll try to listen to something upbeat. I'll try to get, do things to take me out of that depressive state so that I don't stay there too long. It's just not healthy. Although it feels good, that's all a part of the comfort zone. And I mean, that's a whole nother message, but I don't like the comfort zone, emotional comfort zones, anything like that. So I do whatever I can to get myself out of those modes. So when it comes to failure, man, I have to see the triumph in it. And it's so much, there's so many C's that comes with every failure, man. It's so many C's, so many positive things, so many lessons that comes from it. I was on a stage recently and I told people that, I'm undefeated now. I win some and I learn some. I don't lose anymore. I'm undefeated because every single, perceived loss, I immediately translated into a lesson so that I'm getting something from it.
Yeah, brilliant, Joel. So 2 things there that I want to just play back to you. And the first one, you come from a psychology background, so you'll be very familiar with this. And it's the difference between loss frame and gain frame. So if you have had some bad luck and all you do is see the negative, you will continue to spiral down. But if you can look at the art of the positive and the possible, that's when you can start taking the steps towards some kind of recovery from whatever it was that just happened. And then that last thing you said, Joel, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, or you said win some, lose some, learn some, sorry. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Such a powerful message. The key is, if I can play again and let me know your thoughts on this, it's applied learning. So not only do you need to, from that failure, learn something, you need to do something about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's the same as motives. Like you can have great motives, but you got to move on those motives, right? So, I mean, that application is key. It's key. I mean, I let people know that all the time. Me being a speaker, you can call me a motivational speaker, inspirational, whatever you want to call it. But whenever I've been, called a motivational speaker, I'm like, okay, I'm going to help provide some motives, but beyond this talk, when I leave this stage, when I leave this room, or if it's virtual, whatever the case is, you have to move now. Like you say, you can learn as much as you want to learn, but if you don't apply it, you will never see it. The world will never see it. It'll just be dormant in you, and you don't want it to go to the grave with you. It's a big thing for me. There's so much that I've learned and that I'm learning. I refuse to have it go to the grave with me. Why do I have it? I have it to show it, in some capacity, not to show it off, but to help improve other people in some form or fashion, or just to help someone else.
That's really powerful, Joel. So I've now got, and I've not thought about this until this very moment, but I've got this picture of people at a Tony Robbins event or one of your events, Joel, and they're pumped. They really feel energized. And then they leave the room and they do nothing to change their life.
Mm-hmm.
The positive psychology itself, that uplifting moment, does nothing unless you do something about it. That's really powerful, Joel.
Yeah, and I have to say this because this has helped me. So hopefully it can help other people. Just to have the mindset of immediate practice is so important. So whenever I learn something, immediately, if I don't practice it in some form or immediately attempt to apply it, it's out the window. It it doesn't stick for me. So if it helps anybody else to tell yourself, okay, the next seminar I may go to, the next message I may hear, immediately do something to practice that energy, that new lesson, that you just picked up on. That immediate practice is so, so, so important. And again, I believe I got that from sports because, sometimes my trainer will work on something with me during the off season and we'll work on it for hours, a 3-hour workout. And he said, all right, look, you have a pro-am game this evening. Do this, try it. And I would just try it. And, I'm not afraid to mess up. I'm not afraid to fail at anything. So, I would try it right away, whether it looked good or bad. That immediate practice at least showed me, okay, you have the confidence, you have the heart to do this thing. Now just try it one more time. And that it always just stuck with me again, and just in life and fatherhood, everything.
I've got Wayne Gretzky coming through my brain right now, screaming at me, I've missed every shot that I never took, right? So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, one more I read that you talk about is we need to stop looking at the struggle as negative. And you've been through your struggles. There's a lot of people listening today, Joel, that are going through their struggles. It's been a tough few years for the world and continues to be so. What do you mean by stop looking at the struggle as negative?
And a lot of people, it's going to be tough for people to accept this, but the struggle is a blessing. And it really is, because that's where we grow the most. How often do you see things as going beautiful and well and say, man, I grew a lot there? I mean, when you really look back on everything, look back on your life and say, man, I really grew a whole lot when that situation was perfect. You grew the most. You made the most adjustments. You made the most growth right after a struggle, as a result of the struggle. You may not have felt it during the struggle, but right after that struggle, you can look back and say, okay, wow, I did become a beast after that. I did do something amazing after that. When that didn't work out, I figured it out, and then it worked out because that first side was the struggle. So to go through a struggle, if we just change our lens a little bit and say, okay, while we're in it though, that's the important part. Like while we're in the struggle, if we can recognize it as being a struggle, let's not sulk about it. Let's see what we can do in that moment to see the blessing of that struggle, to say, okay, how am I going to grow as a result of this struggle? There's so much strength that comes from our struggles, but we have to recognize them. And it's an entire method that I came up with, and I'll let you know more about this later. But I just created, I just finished my own book, my first book, called Filtering, and it's literally dealing with that. The subtitle was The Way to Extract Strength from Your Struggle. So it's a method I came up with about 7 or 8 years ago, and I began speaking it from the stage just to let people know, look, when you're going through your next struggle, filter it. Literally take it through an extraction process to where you can take exactly what you need from that situation, from that struggle, that will actually help propel you beyond that situation so that you're not stuck in that moment. Because the moment you start to filter your situation, you start to brainstorm, which is a beautiful thing. Brainstorming amidst a struggle is a great thing, because you're now taking your mind to the proper place of strategically trying to get yourself out of that struggle. And the moment you're in that place, you don't even notice the struggle of it anymore. You just start to grow immediately.
I want to make sure I'm understanding this one, Joel. So we use the term filtering in the coaching world, and we talk about filtering out the content and finding the substance. Is what you're talking about here similar to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as far as emotional filtering, mental filtering, there's so many, different areas to where you apply the same practice. And that's the beauty of this method. You just have to apply it, especially emotionally would be the most vital part of filtering. When we're in these emotional states, we make some unideal, choices. I'll say that, choices of regret later on. And we look back in hindsight and say, man, I shouldn't have done that. But if you're filtering your moment while you're in the moment, again, I keep mentioning that because it's so important that we have to recognize what we're going through when we're going through them, so that we don't have to always wait for hindsight to reveal to us what foresight can reveal to us. So if we just recognize what we're going through when we're going through them, man, we just by way of filtering it, really just trying to extract what we're going through right then and there. So much of what we go through and experience can just be so much better.
That's really interesting. How much of that would you say, Joel, is instinctive versus being present and paying attention?
The way I look at it is it can be instinctive after a while, so it's just being in the moment, just recognizing, again, even going back to mildly that immediate practice, just having your mindset be on, okay, and it's not in a pessimistic or morbid place that I'm coming from, but saying, okay, when the next thing happens in my life that may be negative or that may not be to my liking, here's what I'm going to do. Having protocols and things in place for yourself to combat, the things that may normally bring you down, so that when those things happen, because life isn't perfect, things happen, it doesn't have to be anything of great magnitude, but just things on a daily basis happens that brings us down. Our boss may be on our backs, our coworkers, we don't really like them, but we deal with them, just whatever the case is that may ruin your day, have things to combat those moments. Find ways to say, okay, when they happen, here's what I'm going to do to get something from those things that will actually still make me better at the same time. So that's the way I look at so much of life, man. It's just, I have things in place, that will help me strategically not be affected by those things.
I got to reflect to you, Joel, that the man that is in front of me on this Zoom screen right now, I can see now where that strength and resilience has come from. That's a really strong mindset. I see you almost preparing for the unexpected. I see you preparing for the expected. Okay, what could go wrong here, and how am I going to respond if it does? Respond, not react. I'm hearing a measured response through that filtering. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not coming from a pessimistic place, at all. It's just me realizing and seeing the pattern of life. It's not perfect. The pattern hasn't been perfect once for me, and it hasn't been perfect for anyone. No one has had a perfect life. And I think the moment, again, acceptance is so huge. The moment we accept that, the moment that's when we're able to begin preparing. Okay, look, this situation has happened before in my life. That situation has happened before. Those exact situations may not happen again, but similar ones that mirror those situations that has a different surface to them may happen that brings about the same negative emotion in you, the same negative reaction in you. So if those things may come about or similar, then I'm at least ready to not be negatively affected by them again, as I have in the past. And for me, the whole method that I practice as far as filtering, I always say that it helps you to resolve your issues instead of allowing those issues to revolve. And that's a huge thing for me. I don't want them to keep coming back around and I keep getting smacked in the face by the same situation over and over again. That shows a level of ignorance in me to where it's like I haven't been paying attention to life. So I want to make sure I'm ahead of the game and say, okay, I learned that situation. I learned from that situation rather, and I don't want to go through that again. I should have learned something from the last time.
Two really powerful things there, Joel. So I'm hearing all of the mindfulness of paying attention to what's going on around you. And then I'm hearing that learning cycle, that learning mindset come back again. And what I love that's in there was the emotional aspect. It wasn't just what is going on here, it was the emotions. And what I'm seeing or playing, if I can play it back to you, when you have an emotion, asking you, what is this? Like asking yourself, what is this emotion? Why this emotion? Why this emotion now? And by asking yourself those questions, you'll know what your emotional triggers are so that you're ready for them next time. Yeah? Exactly.
I agree. I mean, that's exactly what it is. So many times we're afraid to ask those questions because we're going to be revealed to ourselves. Like we don't want that revelation because it hurts, because we're going to reveal imperfections, insecurities, and different things. The moment we start leaning into ourselves and trying to figure ourselves and our situations out, it's a daring thing to do. We don't always want to look in the mirror and say, that's who we truly are. It's a tough thing. But the moment you dare yourself to do that, you know yourself. And I dare say that even when others may send disrespect your way, negative comments your way, even those things won't affect you because you know who you are. But so often we ignore who we truly are. And at that point, when negativity is thrown our way, we give into that negativity because we're starting to actually believe a little bit what others are saying about us because we don't truly know who we are. So that's to where I say, look, dare lean into your situation, ask those questions, say, why is this going on? Why did I even allow this to happen? What is it that I didn't do to, keep this from happening? Those types of questions are amazing when you start to get those revelations and those answers.
So we talk a lot on the show about authenticity and being an authentic leader. And for everyone that's listening in the audience right now, everything that Joel just said, that's what it is. That's what authenticity is. If you're looking for authenticity and you wonder what it is, we talk about this as almost an elusive thing. Everything that Joel just said, that is what authenticity is. Just absolutely wonderful, Joel. And so much self-awareness as there. But it's not just self-awareness, taking ownership of it and going, yes, this is me and exactly. I am enough.
Exactly.
Okay. I've wanted to ask this question to someone for a while now, and I think I've stumbled across the best person to ask it. Mm-hmm. In emotional intelligence, there are 4 parts of emotional intelligence that nearly everyone kind of gets now because we talk about it a lot. Self-awareness, self-management, talk about empathy, 3 different types of empathy, talk about relationships. The 5th one is not spoken about so much, which is about self-motivation. What can you tell us about how you can use emotions to work for you instead of against you?
Great question. So for me, I utilize every emotion that I have, my sadness, anger, my happiness, whatever you want to think of. There's energy. There's literally energy in every single emotion that we have. When you're angry, you yell, you scream, you curse, you do all these things at a high rate. There's so much energy that you do. When you're sad, you cry, you pout, to the point where you just lay down and even cry yourself to sleep many times. When you're happy, you jump around, you sing. There's so much emotion and emotional energy that we can get from these emotions that if you capitalize on these things and put them through, again, I keep saying it, but the proper filter, there's something on the other side that will really move you forward and not pull you backward. So for me, any emotion that I have, I say, okay, what can I draw from this to motivate me in the proper direction? Like, I don't want to live here if that emotion is negative. I don't want to stay there. It may feel good, but only for a moment. I thank God I've noticed that by now to where that's the pattern. Anytime I've lived there, it never feels good beyond that moment. I regret it, so I don't want that regret. That hurts. So for me, if I'm angry, I'm like, okay, stop. Just take a moment. I already, the studies show that we can think over 50,000 thoughts in a day. That boils down to over 30 thoughts in a minute. If I take a minute to myself, I can think 30 thoughts, and that will help my response to the situation as opposed to emotionally reacting to it. So for me, the moment I give myself a minute and draw out whatever energy I can from any emotions that I have, I'm motivated to do something great beyond that moment. Something at least good. It may not be great, but something better than that moment. So that's why I would tell people, like, really lean into those situations. You don't have to deny your anger. Be angry. I tell my athletes all the time, in our training, Mick, I mean it too. In our training, when an athlete is trying to execute something that I'm showing them and they're messing up a whole lot, the moment they get angry and just go for it, they execute it. And I told them all, stay angry. I told them all the time, stay angry. Because there's a different level of motivation that's come out of you now to where you're so mad, you're not thinking about anything besides execution. So lean into your anger, but get something from it. Lean into your sadness, but get something from it. Find ways to combat those things, but to still improve.
So harness your emotions in a healthy way to motivate you to high performance.
Couldn't put it in a better way. Exactly.
Is this is a bold question, beyond all of you're a high performance trainer, you're a high performance athlete, now you're a high performance trainer, you do all of this stuff. Is this the missing ingredient for many, right? So everyone knows about the training, we know about the nutrition, we know about the hours they put in, but is true greatness this ability to harness those emotions for positive impact?
Absolutely. I really, if you want to call anything a secret, that's a secret because you have to have a no matter what mentality. I'm just going to be honest with you because the difference between the high level and the mid level, mentality. I'm not going to say the athlete or the person or the performer, if you're an entertainer or whatever the case is that no matter what mentality to where, okay, I wasn't feeling great yesterday, So, all right, you weren't feeling great yesterday. So does that mean you're not going to perform great today? Or are you telling me that you're going to also let that carry over and you're not going to perform great today? If, they're kind of dragging on yesterday, they probably won't perform well today. But if you'll have that other person say, I wasn't feeling well yesterday. Forget that. I'm about to kill it right now to the best of my ability. That's the difference to where you have to have this no matter what mentality to where no matter what you've gone through, you have to find a way to persist. You have to immediately tell yourself what I tell athletes, tell yourself next play. The moment you mess up, you have to tell yourself next play. Don't drag on that because it's going to affect your next possession. So for me, you have to have that next play mentality to where no matter what happened, no matter what you're going through, you got to find a way. Even when it hurts, you have to find a way to keep moving forward. You'll love yourself for it in the end.
Well, there's a universal truth there, right? You cannot, none of us, I don't care who you are, none of us can change what has already happened. We can only change what we do from this moment onwards, right?
Exactly.
So if you miss a shot in basketball, you miss a shot, guess what? You missed it.
Gotta move on.
You got a chance at the next one.
I have no choice, right? No choice.
All right, brilliant. Look, Joel, this has been amazing talking about all of the elements of high performance psychology. That's all I can call it. This high performance psychology, including looking at the struggle and learning from the struggle and everything we're talking about. Not all positive and everything's rosy and all this kind of stuff, but how you live your life through the struggle to learn and come out the other end, and then how you harness positive emotion or harness emotion for positive effect is a better way of saying that. That's been amazing. I want to use some time now to also talk about something that I know that you're deeply passionate about. Just I want to give you the platform to share your 3 essentials for equality. Today's show was about the psychology, but I know that this is a passion of yours and I want to give you that opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, it's wholeheartedly a passion of mine. Just equality, period. Just on so many different fronts. Equality as far as just men and women. Gender equality. Racial equality. Of course. Just so many different ways to where it would we can unify as a people, as a country, as a world. So many different ways, and the 3 steps that I speak on for equality is to have first a childlike imagination, and I speak on a childlike imagination from so many different fronts. I'll mention 2 of them. First off, as children, we're not taught to hate. We're not taught to, I'm not going to say taught to, some are. We're, innately, we don't hate. Initially, we don't, separate or segregate. We don't see, separation as anything. We just see another child, even if they're from another culture, and we love on them. We play with them. We have fun with them as a child. And I love that about children, and also as a child, we don't see impossible at all. Like everything's possible to us. And it's a level of great ignorance that exists, that causes that within a child. There's so much that children don't know, but that ignorance is a blessing because impossible doesn't exist. And that's where I think that as adults, we can revert back to, that we ought to revert back to, is that impossible doesn't exist type of mentality, right? So that we now having the resources and the education that we have can tie in that impossible doesn't exist mentality, and we can create amazing things. And again, just as far as the side of equality, we can create equality by just really seeing it first, but so many people don't want to see it. So many people refuse to even say that, they can see something that actually created beyond that point. But I just really love the side of having a childlike imagination to take you back to that place of that not so much the innocence, but the ignorance. There's a level of ignorance that we still should have. I'll be honest with you, as adults, toward different things, you know. But yeah, childlike imagination is huge for me. And, you know, beyond that, step number 2 is to need your wants. You know, I tell people all the time, this is a vital step to need your wants, because we say that we want equality. You know, we want all of these things to happen. You know, here in America, you know, we have, you know, Black Lives Matter movements. We have so many different things going on to where we want to end so much of the racial inequality that exists. I tell people, especially when I'm speaking to a predominantly African-American audience, I'm like, we can't just keep saying we want these things. We have to need them. There's a difference, because, you know, things that you want, I want a bag of Skittles right now. You're right. I want the Gatorade, you know, but I can do without those things. If I need one of those, I have to get them. If I needed the Gatorade, there's something in me that's saying, okay, you need some electrolytes, or you need something. So I'm going to make sure I get those things. I'm not okay not having it. And that's what people have to realize, to where you have to change your language, change your mental language, change how you perceive things. Don't just perceive equality as something that you want. No, we need that. And not just for your culture, but for all of our cultures, because it ties us together, it unifies us. So I tell people, you have to chase things down as if you need them. That's when you'll get them, or get mighty, mighty close to them. You know, because again, if you only want this thing and you don't get it, you'll be fine. But if you needed something and you didn't get it, you feel the void. I want you to feel like you have to have equality and pursue it and find different ways to make it come about, connect with other people of other cultures, of other genders, to make sure it comes about. That's what will show the need in a very transparent way. And so beyond the childlike imagination, just to really come up and brainstorm on ideas as a child would, you know, you have to need these things that the ideas that you come up with, and really pursue those things in that fashion. And the third and final step is to focus on the journey. You know, like anytime we set high goals or, you know, challenging feats for ourselves, we tend to focus on the goal, which is a mistake. You know, when we're here and the goal that we set is over here, and we focus on that thing, we're literally overlooking everything that's in between. And when you overlook everything that it takes to get to that goal, you're not appreciating those things that's right in front of your eyes. And when you depreciate those people and those opportunities that's right in front of you, those opportunities and those people leave. That's just the reality of life. So I tell people, focus on the journey, focus on what's in front of your eyes at that moment. That way you'll get the best out of that moment. You'll have success that day. And when that day is gone and that next day comes, you'll have success that day. You'll have what I call success of success. And that's what it's all about. Like when it comes to equality, it's not going to happen like this. It's just not the case. We can look back at the pattern of history. It's never happened like that. You know, here in the States, we've come a mighty long way, but we still have a mighty long way to go. So I tell people, look, it hasn't happened like this. It's going to continue to happen like this. But if we can focus on today and just have a little bit of success today, let's be happy with that. But when tomorrow comes, we have to stay consistent. You mentioned that earlier, consistency. Let's build on it and have success again that next day and just go up incrementally. And I really believe if we're focused on the journey of equality as opposed to just the goal of it itself, then we can really have much greater success in bringing it about.
Yeah, I fully agree. And when you break it down like that, we learn so much more about ourselves and the world around us as we go every step. And when we go step by step, the journey doesn't look so daunting, does it? Just one.
Completely agree. Right. I mean, it's a small word that I think of all the time that it ruins journeys and it ruins goals. Yet that small little word, you know, and that's when people focus on the goal of things. They start saying, yet, oh, I don't have it yet. Oh, this hasn't happened yet. I'm so tired of this. And they quit. Don't focus on the goal. You know, again, that tiny little word, it has ruined so many dreams and pursuits. So yeah, I mean, we got to take it step by step and just say, all right, cool. I made it to this next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And then we do underestimate just how much we can do over a period of time. So we generally overestimate what we can do in a day, a week, a month. I think this is a Bill Gates quote, but we underestimate how much we can achieve in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years.
Absolutely.
And then you can look back and be really proud of every step that you took, and you can enjoy it every way. Yeah. The childlike imagination, I just love it. As you're talking, both things, right? So we are generally born colorblind. We're blind to whether you're from another nation, another culture, another religion. None of that is in our brain when we're born. It's all a learned behavior. It's a learned bias. But also, you got me questioning about limiting beliefs. When do we start believing our own limiting beliefs? When do people start thinking, well, I can't be the president of the United States, or I can't be this, or I couldn't do that? When does that creep in? It's certainly not at that child stage. So I love that. And the wants versus needs, for anyone that hasn't caught Joel's TED Talk, the example that you give there around the cactus really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I'll let you share the story. It's your story. Tell us about the cactus.
So just to really give people a visual on, the difference between a want versus a need, I'll tell them to use their childlike imagination in that moment. I've already broken that step down. And I'll say, okay, now all I need you to do is to envision yourself in a desert, okay? The Sahara Desert, wherever desert you want to imagine. And you've been in that desert all day long. For the last 10 to 12 hours, it's over 120, 130 degrees. At this point, you're exhausted, you're dehydrated, you're thirsty. And I asked them, what's something that you need in that moment? And the entire crowd, everyone would say water. And I let them know, okay, if you need water in that moment, you'll find yourself digging into a cactus with your bare hands just to get that water out because you need it. Your life depends on it. If you don't get it in that moment, you may die. And that's the reality of it. If you only wanted water in that moment, you will walk right past the cactus and all the cacti in the desert. But the fact that you need water in that moment, you will dig into the cactus with your bare hands just to get that water out. And that's the example that I give people, to where that's the difference between a need versus a want. When you only want something, you see it as optional. But when you need something, it's necessary. You're going all out to get that need. Yeah.
All right, really good. I love that example. That's why I wanted to hear you say it again. And please, anyone that hasn't seen Joel's TED Talk, it's really quite amazing. So do catch it. One more question for you before we get to our rapid round. There's a lot of people out there, Joel, that want to be an ally for marginalized groups, whether that's based on religion, race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of us out there that want to be allies. What is your best piece of advice for someone that wants to be an ally for, let's say they're from a, say, traditionally privileged group, but they want to be an ally for a marginalized group? What's the best piece of advice that we could give them?
Again, obviously beyond the empathy, that's a huge thing. Having empathy for self, for other groups, just to really connect and unify yourself with other people. And also having an understanding, that's a huge thing. Asking questions to build your understanding, of yourself. Let's say you're a part of a certain group. Really understand where you are, how you've gotten where you are, and also where others are and how they've gotten where they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to really have a greater understanding, have greater empathy toward both sides of the paradigm, both sides of the situation. And that way you can really say, okay, I have empathy. I may not have experienced this or that, but I understand it to the best of my ability because I've asked questions. I've truly tried to alleviate the level of ignorance that I had in myself to say, okay, I get it, or at least I get it somewhat. And just really that way you can stand alongside others. You can become an ally and say, okay, we can work together to bring this, desired end, to and make it a reality.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. All right. Thank you so much, Joel. It's time for our rapid round now. So these are the same 4 questions we ask all our guests. So the first one, what's the one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
I wish I knew when I was 20 that I can do more, and what I mean by that is there was many times to where, let's say when I was 20 years old, like you mentioned, when emotional things would occur, I would shut down. Right? I would shut down. I wouldn't express myself, wouldn't be transparent. And I stopped moving as much as I could. But now knowing when the very same things may happen or occur, I'm more transparent about it. I seek more help about it. And I know now that I can still do more despite what may have happened.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, As a Man Thinketh, besides the Bible, is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It was if you're not familiar with it, it was written in 1903. Short but sweet book. It's 60 to 90 pages, depending on the print of the book, but there's no fluff. It's so straightforward. It's an amazing book.
Oh, cool. I do not know that one, so I'm going to look into that. What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I have too many. I have so many quotes. But it's one that my dad told me a long time ago. And he said, fear less to be fearless.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well done.
Fear less. So if you want to be a fearless individual, first you just have to start by fearing less. Yeah,
well done. It's very direct and obvious when you hear it, but we don't do it, do we? Really.
Right. Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
And finally, Joel, I'm sure the audience has been enthralled by everything that you've shared today. How does someone get in contact with you if they would like to book you as a speaker or they'd like to know more about what you do?
Well, as far as booking me as a speaker, you can visit my website at joelbgreen.com. I'm also active on Instagram quite a bit at jgreenplt, JAY Green PLT. I'm on all the platforms pretty much, Facebook, LinkedIn, but pretty heavy on Instagram. Like I said, through my website, joelbgreen.com, you can inquire with us that way. And you can book me as a speaker. And my agent, they'll take it from there.
All right, brilliant, Joel. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well to make it easier for people to find it. And we will co-promote this episode with you on Instagram and on LinkedIn, etc. So people will be able to get access to those links. Joel, it's been absolute pleasure exploring this with you today. I really, as you know, I didn't have any kind of question scripted here. I just wanted to follow where it went. I loved every moment of this conversation. There's so many great takeaways. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, same here. I really appreciate you having me on, Mick. Thanks again.
Today's episode was brought to you by my new book, You're a Leader, Now What? The Proven Path to High Performance Leadership. The book contains many of the great lessons that we've learned together here on the Leadership Project podcast, together with lessons that I've collected over my 30-year career as a leader. The book is aimed towards first-time leaders, but really there's something in there for everyone. If you would like to show your appreciation for this show, we would greatly appreciate if you were able to go and get your copy of the book on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback, and if you could leave us an honest review on Amazon. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Project podcast at mixbeers.com. A big call out to Faris Sadek for his sound design and editing of our audio and video content, and to the whole team at TLP, Joanne Gozon, Gerald Calabo, Rika Vidanes, and my wonderful supportive wife, Say Spears, who is also our operations manager. This show would simply not be possible without you. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review at Apple Podcasts. You can catch the video podcast and our video of the week at the Leadership Project YouTube channel, and you can join the conversation at the Leadership Project Facebook community group. We look forward to bringing you more great content and interviews next week as we continue to learn together and lead together. In the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and always remember to challenge the status quo.